Welcome to Thursday, July 28th, 2022, your day with the podcast brought to you by Cowboy State Daily. Cowboy State Daily is more original Wyoming news content than any other news organization in the state. Sign up for their daily email newsletter and check them out on their Facebook page. More monsoon moisture and cool. Many of you watching this podcast won't even get out of the 70s today, and even in the areas that are going to be warmer, really not all that hot. As the collision of this cool front up against the divide and upslope and the monsoon, all these things continue to come together. We had it yesterday and we'll have it today. In those areas listed right there, heavy rain and hail risk in those locations today and probably tomorrow. And I think even into Saturday, we'll have some severe weather to deal with. Now, this is going to be really concentrated over southern and southeastern Wyoming, western Nebraska, eastern Colorado, really all of Colorado, and western Kansas down into Arizona and parts of New Mexico. North and south of those areas, the weather won't be nearly as unsettled. Now, moisture deepens into the high country today, and this is what we wanted to talk about yesterday and really the day before, which is that we've got to be careful to avoid the burn scars in Colorado and Wyoming in particular. We are going to have a high risk of flash flooding today in the mountains. We saw a little bit yesterday, but over the last few days, the deeper moisture really hasn't been in the higher terrain, but it is going to be today. Heat is going to return later this weekend and into next week, but monsoon moisture is going to be around. That may throttle the heat a little bit and keep the chances of rain in the forecast and maybe getting into some areas that really need the rain. Some great photos have come in from the last couple of days of severe weather. This is a shot at Cheyenne Frontier Days, looking east from a big thunderhead that was building up east of town yesterday. Lots of beautiful views of these thunderheads yesterday, although they did pack a punch, as we did have some areas got 2 to 3 inches of rain last night. We had several reports of hail. So when you see a green triangle there, you're looking at hail reports, high wind reports as well. And we did see some very impressive hail being reported near Burns, Wyoming yesterday, golf ball size hail, but it was down in Colorado, near Wellington and Larimer County, then also into Weld County. Golf ball to tennis ball size hail reported. Also, we had some heavy hail, large hail reported around Ray and Yuma in Colorado yesterday as well. Akron, Colorado, well over 2 inches of rain. Also, now this was the day before on the 26th in Kit Carson County, those thunderstorms producing some tornado activity. Got some great shots of tornado activity there. That was on the 26th. So there's going to be more weather today. There's the subtropical moisture flow deep and widespread across the region. And that trough of low pressure, now in the Great Lakes, continues to drag that cold front and backs it up against the Continental Divide. And so we've got that moisture flow coming up against that cold air and upslope. So it's a very similar setup to yesterday. It's just going to be a little bit cooler today. But once we see some daytime heating getting going later this afternoon and evening, and that green arrow representing the monsoon coming in deep, and things are going to get going. This is the precipitable water forecast for this afternoon. See all the green and the blues and the whites? That's where the thunderstorm activity is going to be today. And notice how it's on both sides of the Continental Divide. So there's going to be areas west of the divide that get more action today. And here's that coolness. Temperatures from Mexico all the way up to the shores of Hudson Bay. There's a strip of below normal temperatures on the 30-year average. Then you can see the heat continuing in the Pacific Northwest and up into British Columbia. But that's going to change. This entire area where you see in the dark green is under a flash flood watch today. So from southern Wyoming, the Mullen burn scar in the Snowy Range, to the burn scars in Colorado. Then look at the southern and southwest counties of Colorado, southeast Utah. Look at Arizona. Almost all of Arizona is under a flash flood watch, as well as a good chunk of New Mexico. So keep your distance from creeks, rivers, and streams, as well as those burn scar areas. The Storm Prediction Center showing that the Front Range of southeastern Wyoming and Colorado is most at risk. This risk of severe weather today is mainly going to be hail again and very, very heavy rain, as well as strong winds. We had a wind gust of over 70 miles per hour yesterday at Warren Air Force Base west of Cheyenne. So these storms will mean business. As we look ahead into next week's weather, This is the subtropical moisture flow getting shunted west, but coming back in again. This is by next Tuesday afternoon. So for the first few days of August, it's going to be hot, but we're going to see that subtropical moisture move in. And if we were to look at the precipitation forecast over the next 10 days, you can see this heavy concentration of monsoon moisture in this arc here. Now, if you're south of this arc, look at West Texas there, almost nothing. Then you get up here, almost nothing. So basically, you're just kind of the bridesmaid and not the bride if you're north and south of this axis. If you're closer to the axis, it's going to wobble back and forth, and you have better chances of rain. As we mentioned in yesterday's podcast, there's going to be subtropical moisture getting into this area next week, and I think that's going to improve the chances in these areas here that need the rain to get some chances of rain-producing thunderstorms next week, even though it's going to be heating up. And this is by Sunday. We start to see a low heading towards the west coast to bring cooler weather relief to the Pacific Northwest, but the high here starts to migrate east again, and that's going to bring the heat back. This is by next Wednesday, so we reverse it. It's just a 180. The cool in the Midwest and the Central Plains goes back to warm again, while the hot weather from British Columbia to the west coast of the Pacific Northwest reverses and goes cooler again. So it's a flip-flop. And you can see that because of a high pressure ridge right over eastern Nebraska, but the clockwise flow here opens the door to the subtropical moisture. And here's a cool front and a trough into Washington and Oregon, and those are going to work together. This is why we think west of the Continental Divide, we've got a better situation here for that moisture to come in. And here it is. Look how deep the moisture is over Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, southern areas of Montana. That could lead to a better chance of rain-producing thunderstorms next week, but it's going to be steamy. It's going to be very warm with that higher humidity air. All the way out to 15 days. This takes us to August 12th. We see high pressure right over the central of the nation again. So this is just going to keep the same pattern going into the first 2 weeks of August. Although notice, pretty good little storm up here off the Aleutians coming into Alaska as we get into the middle part of the month. That'll be something to keep an eye on. Have yourself a great Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow.